Whatever day you are viewing this, I hope you are doing well. Our first lesson is part of a story that might be familiar to many of you. It is found in Genesis chapter 45, starting with verse 3. To help us better understand today's lesson, a brief recap would be helpful. Joseph shares a vision he had with his whole family, that one day his entire family will bow down to him. His brothers were already jealous of him, and this pushed them over the edge. Even though Joseph was his father Jacob's favorite, it also put him at odds with him. The brothers want to kill him, and the elder brother, Reuben, suggests that they put him in a pit. Then they would say that he was killed by a goat. Then they realized that they can make some money and sell him to the Ishmaelites. Later on, the Ishmaelites sell Joseph to the Egyptians. Fast forward, and the dream becomes reality, though it did not come easily. There were false accusations and imprisonments before he became Pharaoh's governor over all Egypt. Joseph's story is a story of mercy and reconciliation. His brothers were full of jealousy and envy. By the end of our passage, we read of Joseph reconciling with his brothers, despite their plan to kill him and corrupt deal to sell him off to the Ishmaelites. In a time of the need for healing and reconciliation, what we can take away from this lesson is this. Reconciliation is possible, even in the worst of circumstances. Joseph and his brothers choose not to let the past stand in the way of reconciliation. They realize that relationship is primary. Second, reconciliation requires facing and telling the truth, no matter how difficult or painful it might be. There can be no healing, no moving forward, until the wounds of the past and their effect on the present and future are openly, honestly, and truthfully addressed. Jesus put it best. You will know the truth, and the truth will set you free. Reconciliation requires action, not just words. Joseph did his part by taking care of his family. The brothers did their part by acknowledging they had mistreated Joseph and honor his request to bring the family to Egypt. In all this, Joseph recognizes God's hand in these events and how it benefited everyone, including other nations. We know there is much pain and division in our world. But what about right in our own backyard or family? The need for reconciliation is as necessary today as it was in Joseph's day. We need to remember to do our part to reconcile our differences. With the Spirit, may we be merciful so we can forgive and reconcile whatever it is that might be fractured and divided. There's that word, forgiveness. Forgiveness is usually key to any reconciliation, and that's not always easy. For me, I need the words of the song we sing every week to help me. Change my heart, O God, and make it ever true. Make me more like you. Because on my own, it's probably not going to happen. This week's psalm is from chapter 37, starting with the first verse. And I think Joseph's story is a good example of following the words of our psalm writer. Verse 3 says, "Put your trust in the Lord and do good." Verse 5 says, "Commit your way to the Lord. Put your trust in the Lord and see what God will do." Joseph definitely did that. And from verse 7, "Be still before the Lord and wait patiently. Do not be provoked by the one who prospers, the one who succeeds in evil schemes. And from verse 8, refrain from anger. Do not be provoked. It leads only to evil, as we saw with Joseph's brothers. The second reading can be found in 1 Corinthians chapter 15. Paul is trying to explain the resurrection to the Corinthian church. Paul insists that Christ has died, Christ is risen, Christ will come again. When Christ comes again, all will be raised and the living will be transformed. It seems that the Corinthians are concerned as to what does that resurrected body look like. A question I'm sure all of us thought of at one time or another. The idea of a heavenly body is concerning to them because they look at the body as problematic, not the kind of vessel you want to spend eternity in. Life in an earthly body was not necessarily a healthy existence. Life was hard. There was no health care. Life expectancy was low. Less than 50% of the children lived to see the age of 10. So, if God insists on raising corpses, what will these bodies be like? Many of the Corinthians did not find this appealing. Paul is trying to explain to them that the bodily resurrection is from a perishable body to an imperishable body. It is the transformation of the body into a body that has not been corrupted by the powers of sin and death. Verse 44 reads, "It is sown a physical body, it is raised a spiritual body." And verse 47, "The first man was from the earth, a man of dust. The second man is from heaven." Paul is convinced that the believers will be transformed as Christ has been transformed. He insists that the resurrected body will be a recognizable, spirit-filled body of some sort. Paul can make this bold claim because he has seen the resurrected Christ. How this transformation happens, we do not know, but we do not need to. The gospel lesson can be found in Luke chapter 6, verses 27 through 38. When I read the first 5 verses, I immediately thought of our Old Testament reading and how Joseph handled his situations with patience, love, and forgiveness. And I thought of Joseph's brothers in verse 35. "For he is kind to the ungrateful and the wicked." We hear Jesus teach such a different worldview from our own that it can make us shake our heads and make us go, "What was that again? I don't think I heard that correctly." Those who follow Jesus are to live as God lives, mercifully and generous beyond expectation, perhaps beyond comprehension. For God's people, loving, lending, and doing good are all about generosity that does not draw boundaries based on the recipient's responses. Sometimes we really have to ask the question, am I doing this because there is something in it for me? Are we truly being merciful? We see that generous healing, restoration, and hope flow through Jesus. Jesus makes sure we who are listening know that it is our calling as well. A great summary to our gospel lesson can be found in the Sundays and Seasons introduction to this lesson. The introduction is printed as part of the reading in Sunday's bulletin. As it is with all the lessons, I suggest you can take the time on Sunday to read over them. They help provide background and context to the readings. Ours says, Jesus continues to address a crowd of his disciples. He invites his followers to shower radical love, blessing, forgiveness, generosity, and trust, even on enemies and outsiders. Living in harmony with God's intent brings the reward of overflowing blessing. I believe Joseph found this to be quite true. I hope you take the time to review and read these lessons and to ponder and think about them. Take care, and I hope you have a blessed week.